You think water is just water, until it rises around your knees in a stranger's basement, pitch black and reeking of something far worse than mold. You think you're just saving a trapped family. Then you feel something brush past your leg. The call came at 3:18 a.m. Flash flood response. Common this time of year. A single-family home on Leland Street. Power out, basement filling fast. 2 miners reported trapped. We were the closest unit. I rode up front with Dawson, who'd been quiet all shift. The rain hammered the windshield. Visibility was garbage. When we turned onto the block, the water was already pushing against mailboxes and porch steps. We parked on the sidewalk, no choice, and waded in. The house was a one-story with a walkout basement. Lights were flickering behind the glass. As we came around the back, we spotted them, 2 kids, maybe 14, screaming behind the basement window. Their hands banged uselessly on the pane. Water up to their chests. The grate above the window well was bolted down. I clipped it in 3 moves. Dawson shattered the glass with his boot. The moment the opening was clear, the kids clawed their way out like they'd been underwater for hours. One boy was shivering uncontrollably. The girl had a bloody gash on her leg. They collapsed into the mud, coughing and sobbing. "My mom," the boy said. "She went to get our dog. She hasn't come back." It had been 20 minutes since they saw her last. We left them with an officer from a backup unit. No time to wait. Basement rescues don't wait. Inside, the stairs down were slippery with runoff. The basement door stuck halfway open. Water poured in like a busted dam. I stepped in first. The flashlight beam shook in my grip. We'd both seen bad floods, nothing new. But this one felt off. The smell was wrong. Not just mold or sewage. Sweet. Heavy. Like rotting fruit and wet insulation. The water was up to my thighs. We split. Dawson went left. I took right, scanning beneath floating debris, chairs, toys, a mop handle. The sump pump squealed faintly somewhere under the surface, completely overwhelmed. I called out, "Mrs. Calderon?" No answer. Just the gurgle of water, the hum of drowned appliances. Then, something brushed my knee. I flinched. Shine the light down. Could have been a towel. A curtain. It wasn't. It was the dog. A golden retriever, floating sideways, fur-matted, leash still tangled in a laundry basket. Its eyes were open. Staring. I swallowed bile and moved on. That's when Dawson called out, "Got her!" She was wedged between a filing cabinet and the hot water heater, barely keeping her head above water. Pale. Shaking. Alive. We lifted her out carefully, each of us taking an arm. She was barefoot, half-conscious, and mumbling. We carried her upstairs, step by step, water tugging at our gear. Only when we reached the kitchen did she speak up clearly. "There's someone else." I froze. Dawson gave me a look. "What do you mean?" "Who?" Her voice cracked. "My husband. He was supposed to be home." I glanced at Dawson again. "We didn't see anyone else," I said. "Are you sure?" She didn't answer. We laid her on the couch, wrapped her in blankets, and radioed for EMTs. Then we went back in. Water was higher now. Darker. Still, we searched again. That's when I found it, behind a shelf. A black duffel bag, waterlogged and duct-taped shut. I pulled it up onto a table, heart pounding. There was no ID. No wallet. Just a small, pink shoe. And the smell? Stronger now. Like something long dead had just started breathing again. We didn't open the duffel bag right away. Not because we were scared, at least that's what we told ourselves, but because we weren't sure if it was even our job to. I looked at Dawson. He looked at me. Neither of us moved. "What if it's just garbage?" I asked, though I already knew better. He reached into his vest and pulled out a knife, sliced through the duct tape in a single motion. The zipper fought him. Water had swollen the fabric. When it finally peeled open, the smell hit us first. It wasn't sewage. It wasn't rot in the usual sense. It was the scent of time. Of flesh that had once been warm. Of something tucked away and left to dissolve. Inside, wrapped in moldy towels and what looked like a collapsed plastic tarp, was a bundle of children's clothes. A pink hoodie. Cartoon socks. The mate to the tiny shoe I'd already seen. Dawson stepped back. His eyes were wide, but his voice was flat. "There's bone in there." I looked closer. Just a glimpse, no more than an edge of something pale, like wet porcelain. That's all I needed. We sealed the bag again. Called it in. By then, the EMTs were loading Mrs. Calderon into the ambulance. Her kids were in the back, wrapped in heat blankets, staring like their brains had checked out. Dawson spoke to the supervisor while I stood on the porch, dripping rainwater and fear. The whole house seemed to lean inward, like it knew what we'd found. An hour later, crime scene tape went up. The coroner's van arrived at dawn. And we got pulled aside by a plainclothes detective who'd shown up before the coffee even brewed. "You boys found the bag?" he asked. We nodded. He didn't smile. Didn't say thank you. Just scribbled into a pad and asked, "Did she mention a name?" "Her husband," I said. "Said he was supposed to be home." The detective nodded slowly. "She told us he moved out 4 months ago." That didn't sit right with me. We asked the kids later, after everything settled, when the department therapist gave us the go-ahead. They didn't remember seeing their dad since Christmas. No visits. No calls. Just one day gone. They never asked why. It took 2 weeks for the coroner to confirm it was human remains. A child. Female. Estimated age between 2 and 4. No name. No missing person match. No prints. Nothing. The case never went public. All internal. All quiet. A detective friend, off the record, told me the Calderons weren't the real owners of the house. They'd moved in 6 months ago. Renters. The landlord hadn't been inside the basement in years. So who was the girl? No one knew. Or no one was saying. Mrs. Calderon recovered physically. But she stopped cooperating with the investigation. Her family lawyered up quick. Moved out faster. Left no forwarding address. We were told to drop it. Move on. But I never did. I still think about that night. How the dog was leashed. How the girl went down to save it. How she led us right to the place someone had tried to hide something unspeakable. I wonder if she knew. Or if something in that basement wanted to be found. Not for justice. Not for peace. But just so it wouldn't be alone down there anymore. You think you've seen darkness, until you're inside a burning house and the only light is fire behind you. Then the smoke swallows you, the walls groan, and something brushes past your turnout gear that isn't fire or falling timber. It was my 5th year on the job, and the first time I thought I wasn't making it out. Structure fire. Residential. 2-story home on East Highland. We rolled up just after 2 a.m., flames already punching through the 2nd floor. Neighbors were outside, barefoot and shouting that the family was still inside. 3 people unaccounted for. The lieutenant sent us in fast, me, Halloran, and Yasik. We went through the front, crouched low under the smoke. The heat was already kicking like a furnace, but we had a layout from the husband, wife and daughter upstairs, maybe the boy too if he hadn't made it out. The living room was a mess, flames eating the curtains, paint bubbling off the walls. We pushed through toward the staircase. I remember the banister was half melted. Halloran radioed. "2nd floor unstable, keep low." We hit the landing. Visibility dropped to 0. No movement. Just that strange groaning noise houses make when they're too hot, like they're warning you, "Get out." Yasik called out. "Fire department! Anybody up here?" No response. Then I heard a thud. Sharp. Close. It came from the hallway to the right, where the kids' room was supposed to be. I took point, crawling over scorched carpet that peeled under my gloves. My mask was fogging. Every breath tasted like plastic and fear. And then I heard it again. Not a thud this time. A voice. Help. Small. Weak. Coming from the far end of the hall. I got a voice! I shouted. Right side! I crawled faster, ignoring how the ceiling tiles were starting to crackle overhead. I reached the door at the end, half off its hinges, scorched black. I pushed inside. No fire in the room. Just smoke and heat. Visibility maybe 2 feet. Fire department, I called, sweeping with my gloved hand. Where are you? Another sound, closer this time. Movement under the bed. I ducked low, shoved my light underneath. A girl. Maybe 7. Curled up. Face smeared with soot. Eyes wide. Hey, I said, voice calm. You're okay now. I'm gonna get you out. She didn't move. I reached in, grabbed her arm gently. Ice cold. She didn't resist, didn't speak. I pulled her out, scooped her into my arms. She weighed nothing. Her chest was barely rising. Victim located! I yelled into the mic. Female child, age approximate 7. Unconscious but breathing. I turned to head back, and stopped. The hallway behind me was gone. In its place? Just black. Smoke so thick it was like tar. My flashlight cut through only a few inches, catching particles that shimmered like ash snow. The heat pressed in harder. Walls groaned again, louder now, like the house was sinking. And then, footsteps. Behind me. Heavy. Deliberate. I spun, almost dropped the girl. Nothing there. I radioed. Halloran? Yasik? You copy? Static. I tried again. Louder. Fire crew, I've got the girl, I need an exit. Hallway's compromised. Still nothing. Then, clear as day, a voice in my ear. Not from the radio. From the smoke. You shouldn't be here. Low. Gravelly. Inhuman. I ran. Or tried to. The hall was warped. Doors that weren't there before. Walls buckled out like breathing ribs. Something was wrong with this house. Fire I can handle. This was something else. The girl in my arms wasn't moving. My flashlight barely worked anymore. The lens had fogged up from the heat, and every breath inside my mask felt like I was inhaling soup. Smoke blurred everything, thick enough to erase even the floor beneath me. Still I moved. I followed instinct. Gut. Geometry. I retraced the hall, or tried to, except the layout didn't match. I remembered a hallway with 1 closet, 2 doors. Now it was 3 doors. 4. One of them wide open, heat shimmering inside. Voices crackled faintly through my radio. Halloran. Yasik. Vic found. Need confirmation. 2nd floor unstable, get out. I hit the transmit. I have the girl. Need a path. Repeat, I'm trapped. No response. Another groan overhead. The kind that makes your spine stiffen. Then something loud, crack, pop, slam. The ceiling behind me gave in. Debris crashed where I'd just been standing seconds ago. I nearly dropped her. Had to stop. Recenter. I whispered. Almost there, kiddo. Hang on. But the girl didn't react. No moan, no twitch, no breath on my arm. I reached up, tugged at her mask gently. It wasn't fogged. It was just empty. No breath inside it. No moisture. No sign she'd ever been alive at all. I froze. Turned my body toward the nearest wall. Propped her against me, checked for vitals again. Still warm. But no pulse. I lifted the mask's edge, peeking at her face. She wasn't breathing. I blinked. Shook my head. Was it heat stroke? Smoke confusion? Was I hallucinating? My arms began to tremble. Then I heard her voice. Not in my ear. In my head. A whisper. It's not the fire. I staggered backward. Slammed into a wall. The girl didn't move. My boots slid in water, or something like it. I aimed the flashlight downward, and saw it, dark liquid spreading from under one of the doors. Thick. Black. Not water. Not blood either. I turned away. Another voice on the radio. This time clear. Captain to entry, second floor has 15 seconds. Evacuate or pull out. 15 seconds. I didn't think. I moved. I ducked under collapsed beams. Kicked through warped drywall. Navigated the wrong hallway like I'd built it myself. And then, a light. Daylight. Smoke curling at the edge of a broken window at the end of the hall. I took one deep breath, probably my last clean one for the day, and sprinted. Just before I jumped, I looked down at the girl. She was gone. My arms were empty. Gone like she'd never been there at all. I hit the grass hard, rolled once, and lay still, coughing into my mask. Hands grabbed me. My team. Pulling me up, yelling my name. What happened? Where's the kid? I couldn't speak at first. I just kept looking at my arms. They were empty. Covered in ash. I finally choked it out. She was right here. I was holding her. They all looked at me like I'd lost it. And maybe I had. They found 2 victims upstairs later. The mother in the master bedroom. The daughter under her bed. Time of death? Likely before we arrived. Before I ever entered the hallway. So what did I carry? I still don't know. Maybe stress plays tricks. Maybe I imagined it. But I still remember the way her weight shifted in my arms. The way she whispered from the dark. And every now and then, when I'm crawling through a burning house, and I hear voices that don't belong, I think of her. And I don't look back. You haven't felt fear until you're 30 feet under black ice, breathing through a line that could freeze, knowing you've only minutes before your body turns to stone, and someone's screaming topside that the kid isn't where he fell in. We got the call just after 5 p.m., sunset in January. Boy through the ice. 9 years old. Last seen skating with friends on a pond in Silver Pines, a place we knew well. Every winter someone tests that glassy surface too soon. Every winter someone falls. But this time was different. This time, I was on shift. I'm a diver for the County Fire Rescue Unit. That sounds dramatic until you realize most of my dives are in zero visibility, in water so cold it could stop your heart if you didn't wear 2 layers of dry suit. It's not glamorous. It's just cold and dark. We arrived on scene 9 minutes after the call. Screams. Sirens. Flashlights slicing across a white, frozen wasteland. The ice was thin, 1.5 inches, maybe. The hole had spiderwebbed wide. A sled lay near the edge, half submerged. Nearby, a cluster of kids huddled under a foil blanket, sobbing and shivering. One of them pointed. He went under there. I suited up while Dawson prepped the ropes. The water was maybe 12 feet deep, deeper in the center, but murky and black, full of plant matter and runoff from nearby farmland. Lines secure, Dawson said, voice clipped. You've got 10 minutes, max, don't lose the tether. I won't. He handed me the comm. Try to stay calm. If you get disoriented. I know. Because I trained for this. But training doesn't prepare you for what it feels like. I dropped into the hole feet first. Instant burn. The cold slammed into my body, even through neoprene and rubber. I kicked down and let the tether guide me forward. Visibility was about 6 inches. No sunlight reached this far under. It was like swimming through ink. I kept my light low, sweeping the silt and reeds. My hands moved in wide arcs, checking for clothing, fingers, anything. Nothing. The minutes ticked. 4 gone. 5. My air regulator began to hiss slightly, not failure, just the frost building on the intake. Standard. Still unnerving. Anything? Dawson's voice buzzed in my earpiece. Not yet. I kept moving, pulling slack along the line. I passed under a jagged outcrop of submerged branches, the kind that could snag a kid and not let go. Still nothing. At minute 6, I found something. A mitten. Just one, tangled in the reeds. Blue. Got something. I said. Glove. North quadrant. Copy. Mark it. I clipped a marker to the rope and pressed on. At minute 8, I felt something brush past my face. It was a shape too quick to catch. Too small for a full body. Possible visual. I radioed. North by northeast 3 meters. Pursuing. I swam toward it. And suddenly, the tether jerked. Hard. Then slackened. Dawson, I said. I just lost tension. Can you confirm I'm still on? A pause. You're not moving. Lines limp. Silence. Then, we're reeling in. I turned in place, and saw it. The rope had been severed. Clean. Right behind me. I was untethered. In a black void under cracking ice. And somewhere in front of me, that shape moved again, fluttered, like a limb waving. But I wasn't sure it was the boy. Not anymore. The rope was gone. I floated there in pitch-black water, breathing in slow, careful sips. My heartbeat was loud in my ears, too loud. I reached back to grab the severed tether. It wasn't frayed. It wasn't snapped. It was cut. I turned my body slowly, sweeping my flashlight in a full arc. Murky reeds twitched gently in the current. Particles swirled like falling ash. Every now and then, one of them looked bigger than it should have, like it had shape, intention. I blinked, trying to reset my depth perception. I spoke into the mic. I've lost the tether. I'm at 10 minutes. No sight of the boy. Visibility is garbage. No response. Dawson, come in. Nothing but static. I pulled my compass and turned south, estimating the direction I'd come from. My light caught a glint ahead, metallic. I swam toward it, careful not to kick up silt. As I got closer, I realized what it was. Another glove. This one red. We were only told about one boy. I checked the lining. Small. Definitely not adult-sized. How many kids were on the ice? I clicked my radio again. Requesting status. Multiple items found. I may not be alone down here. Still nothing. And then I heard it. A voice. Not through the mic. Not through the regulator. Just a voice. Faint. Muffled. Like someone whispering through the water. I froze. My brain tried to logic it away, thermal cracks, stress, even nitrogen narcosis. But I was too shallow for that. The whisper returned. Not him. Then a flash, movement to my right. I swung my beam. A face. Just for a second. Pressed against the underside of the ice. Pale. Eyes wide. Bubbles clinging to the skin like tiny parasites. I kicked hard toward it, but when I got there, it vanished. No trace. Just my own light bouncing off white frost. I was at 12 minutes now. My fingers had gone stiff inside the gloves. My feet were barely responding. I needed out. Then I saw something I still can't explain. A hole. Another hole in the ice. From below, it looked like a tunnel of faint light. I swam toward it fast, lungs tightening from the cold. And as I rose, the light faded. Gone. Like it had never existed. Panic bloomed in my chest. I looked down, then around. And then I saw them. Eyes. At least 3 pairs. Low to the silt. Watching me. Not blinking. Just watching. I kicked backward in terror. My regulator hissed violently, part freeze, part breath surge. I fumbled for my secondary, switched it over. Breathe. Breathe. Think. Then I heard the scraping. Above me. A chainsaw. Blades cutting through ice. It was distant, but real. Dawson. They were cutting a new entry point. I swam toward the sound, ignoring every instinct to look behind me. And I swear, I felt something brush my fin. Not once. Twice. Like fingers. Just as I neared the new opening, I saw the rescue ladder drop through the surface. Arms reached in. Voices shouted. Come on. "We got you!" I broke the surface and gasped. They dragged me out onto the ice, stripped my gear, wrapped me in warming blankets. Dawson's face was pale as snow. "Jesus, we lost you," he said. I didn't speak. Behind us, they kept sawing, looking for the boy. But I knew something then, something I still believe. He wasn't under the ice anymore. And he wasn't above it either. That lake? It took him. Just like it almost took me. And maybe, just maybe, it's taken more than anyone realizes. I've worked highway crashes for 11 years. Seen bodies in trees, skulls split by dashboards, infants thrown 50 yards. But the wreck at mile marker 197? That was the first time I arrived and realized. I'd already seen it before. We got toned out at 2:41 a.m. Single vehicle rollover. Eastbound I-80. 2 occupants. Unknown status. Mile marker 197. I was half asleep in the rig when the dispatch came through. Blew out a long breath, kicked into motion. Cold coffee. Vest. Gloves. Rinse and repeat. The roads were empty. Just our rig, a county sheriff unit, and the reflection of headlights off rain-soaked pavement. We passed mile marker 195, then 196. I saw it before the radio even confirmed. Twisted metal up ahead, hazard lights still blinking. The car, a silver Honda, was upside down in the median ditch. Front end crumpled, windshield spiderwebbed. A smear of red along the inside glass. We parked at a safe angle, lit the scene, and moved in fast. But the second I stepped out of the rig, something in my stomach twisted. Not fear. Recognition. I'd been here before. Not just this stretch of highway, this exact scene. The shape of the car. The position of the tires. The smell, gasoline and rain and something else metallic and wrong. It was déjà vu, but sharper. More like a flashback. I pushed it aside. Focused. I took lead on the driver's side. Sheriff Morgan was already checking for pulses when I crouched down. One victim in the front seat. Male. Early 20s. Neck at a bad angle. Pupils blown. Dead. Second victim was harder to see. Passenger side door was caved in, glass everywhere. Someone was inside, female maybe. Long hair across her face. Her hand twitched. "Passengers alive," I called out. "Gonna need jaws on this side." We started stabilizing the car. The rain kept coming, steady and thin, soaking everything. As we worked, I kept catching glances at the road behind us. No traffic. Just darkness. And a shape near the mile marker. Tall. Still. Watching. I blinked hard, wiped the rain off my goggles. It was gone. Morgan stepped over. "You okay?" "Yeah," I lied. "Just cold." It took 10 minutes to get the passenger door peeled open. When we finally did, I reached in and checked for vitals. She was conscious now. Blood in her mouth. Breathing shallow. Her eyes fluttered open and locked on mine. Then she said something I'll never forget. "You were here last time." I froze. "What?" Her lips moved again. Barely audible. "You let me die." I stared at her, heart stuttering. "Miss, you were in a crash. We're gonna get you out, just hang on, okay?" But she kept looking at me like I'd betrayed her. Like I'd already failed her once. I checked her ID, wallet still in her lap. Samantha Webb. Age 24. No bells rang. But when I looked again at her face, something tugged at my memory. Something buried deep. We got her loaded into the rig. BP crashing, vitals tanking. She coded twice en route. We brought her back both times. But she never looked at me again. Not once. At the hospital, they stabilized her. Intubated. Sent her straight to the ICU. I sat on the bumper of the rig, drenched, heart pounding. Morgan came over, asked what happened in the ditch. I told him everything. Except what she said. And the figure by the mile marker. because it wasn't the first time I'd seen it. And I knew it wouldn't be the last. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, Samantha Webb, whispering those words in the wreckage. You were here last time. By morning, I was rattled enough to dig into our department archives. Just in case. No surprise, we'd been to mile marker 197 before. Plenty of times. It's a bad curve, poorly banked, zero lighting. But what caught my eye was a file from 3 years ago, almost to the day. January 17th. Same kind of call. Single vehicle rollover. 2 occupants. 1 male DOA. 1 female died en route. Names, Ryan Lowell and Emily Webb. Webb. Same last name. Sister? Cousin? Mother? I looked up the obit. Emily was Samantha's older sister. I sat there, staring at the screen like it might change what I'd already pieced together. 3 years ago, I'd been on that call. And I hadn't remembered her face until now. She'd been pinned in a similar wreck. Same spot. I'd crawled into that car, talked to her as she bled out, tried to keep her awake. She looked up at me through cracked lenses and asked, "Is it bad?" And I told her no. Lie. She died 5 minutes later. And now, Samantha had crashed in the same exact place. Saw me. And said, "You let me die." That night, I drove back to mile marker 197. Alone. No lights. No sirens. Just the hum of tires on wet pavement, and the low static of talk radio. When I reached the stretch, I slowed. Parked on the shoulder. Engine off. Rain tapped gently on the windshield. I stepped out and walked to the edge of the ditch where Samantha's car had landed. It was empty now, towed days ago, but the impression in the grass remained. So did the chill. I looked down at the spot where she'd stared at me with blood in her mouth. My breath fogged in the air. Then, footsteps behind me. I turned. No one. But I saw something in the dark. The figure. The same one from before. Tall. Still. Just past the mile marker. Closer now. I reached for my flashlight, hands shaking. Clicked it on and shined it toward the road. Empty. Gone. But then, I heard the sound of tires. Skidding. A scream. I whipped around just in time to see another car lose traction on the curve, hydroplaning, spinning out, lights a blur. It flipped. Landed on its side in the exact same ditch. I didn't think. I just moved. I sprinted through the wet grass, climbed the embankment, and reached the car. Driver's side. Woman inside. Early 20s. Conscious. Crying. Passenger seat, empty. She looked at me through the cracked glass and gasped. "You," she said. I blinked. "Are you hurt?" "You were here before," she whispered. I froze. "What did you say?" She touched the glass. "You always show up just before." My blood ran cold. Just before what? The sirens wailed in the distance now. Someone else must have seen the crash. But I stayed there, crouched by the glass, as she whispered. "It's always the same. Same curve. Same night. What are you talking about?" "Maybe this time," she said, "you'll stop it." I didn't understand. But I do now. Because 2 days later, another wreck. Same spot. Single car. Alone. Fatal. And I was there again. Same ditch. Same weight in my chest. I don't think this is just a curve in the road anymore. It's a trap. Something about that mile marker holds people there. Keeps pulling them back. And me? I think I'm stuck too. Not physically. But caught. In whatever this is. And the worst part? I know the next crash is coming. And I'll be there. Right on time. Again. I've tunneled through collapsed schools, office buildings, and parking decks. But the mall cave-in on 42nd Street? That one still haunts me. Not for what we found. But for what we heard, in the dark space between the floors. We were 3 hours into the rotation when they sent us down. Partial collapse. 4 floors of a suburban shopping center pancaked after a gas explosion ruptured a main support column. We'd already pulled out 11 survivors. 2 DOA. We were looking for a group last seen near the food court. My partner was Holt, quiet guy, ex-army engineer, knew how to keep his nerves tucked away. We rigged up with oxygen and dropped into the narrow void beneath the second floor. Everything creaked. Rebar protruded from crumbled concrete like metal thorns. The space smelled like gypsum and charred fabric. No fire, just pressure burns. They lowered us on ropes and spotters held the line. Once we hit bottom, we crawled on hands and knees, helmet lights barely touching the edges of the destruction. Voids ahead. Holt called out, voice echoing weirdly. I nodded, scanning the rubble. Air pockets. Survivable. We reached what had once been the back hallway to a restaurant. Crushed tables, ceiling tiles turned to powder. But beneath one slab, we heard something. Knocking. Hollow. Weak. We froze. Counted the rhythm. 3 knocks. Pause. 2 more. A pattern. Could be human, Holt whispered. I radioed command. Possible live contact, under main slab. Eastern quadrant. They acknowledged, began prepping breach gear. Holt and I stayed with it, trying to locate the exact spot. Every knock sent vibration through the stone. Like a heartbeat. I pressed my ear to the slab. And that's when I heard the voice. Faint. Raspy. Maybe a child's. Please don't leave. I looked at Holt. Did you hear that? He shook his head. I just hear the knocking. I pressed again. Nothing now. Just silence. And then, closer, right by my feet, a whisper. Underneath. I jolted back. Holt. We've got movement below. He peered into a jagged seam near the wall, barely big enough for a person. I'll check. He slid in feet first, flashlight clipped to his vest. I waited. Watched his light vanish into the dark like a match into water. See anything? Silence. Holt? Finally. There's a space. Big one. Air pocket. I think. Static. The line went dead. Holt, say again? No reply. I tried the secondary line. Nothing. The slab above me groaned. Somewhere behind, loose rebar pinged against concrete. I clipped my tether and crawled toward the seam. My flashlight flickered as I entered, battery full, but dimming anyway. It was like the air was thicker. Inside the pocket, everything felt wrong. No fire damage. No crush injuries. Just emptiness. And Holt's gear, radio, gloves, and helmet, neatly placed in a corner. No Holt. Just the knocking. Right behind me. I stared at Holt's gear. It hadn't fallen. It wasn't scattered. It had been placed, folded like offerings at a gravesite. My chest tightened under the vest. My radio crackled with static, then silence. The air tasted metallic, thick with dust but dry. Wrong kind of dry, like nothing had moved in here for a long time. I turned slowly, sweeping my light along the edges of the crawlspace. No bodies. No blood. Just that hollow stillness you feel in funeral homes and sealed basements. Then footsteps. Behind me. Light. Deliberate. I spun. Shined the light. No one. But something moved just outside the beam. I backed up until I hit a support beam. My breathing sounded too loud in the mask. I switched radio channels, trying every frequency we had. Nothing. Then my light flickered. And I heard Holt's voice. Faint. Calling my name. But not from ahead. From beneath. There was another seam in the concrete, thinner, almost hidden. I knelt beside it, listening. Don't leave me, the voice said. Barely more than breath. I called out. Holt, I hear you. I'm above, hang on, we're coming. But what came back wasn't him. It was laughter. Childlike. Then whispering. Multiple voices, layered and overlapping like echoes through drywall. Words I couldn't understand. Then, "Help me! Please!" Then silence. I stood. Nearly bolted. But I saw something in my light. A handprint on the concrete wall. Small. Child-sized. But fresh. Pressed into ash and soot. Too fresh. We hadn't seen children in the rubble yet. Command buzzed faintly through the comms. "Unit 3, do you copy? Collapse detected. Pull back immediately. Over." I tried to respond, static. Then a sharp crack overhead. Dust rained from the ceiling. And behind me, another knock. I turned slowly. And saw something. A shape just barely there. Silhouetted in the dark. Not Holt. Not anyone in gear. It was barefoot. Small. Its head tilted. And it whispered, "You're late." I backed toward the entrance seam, never breaking eye contact. Another voice joined it, behind me this time. Deeper. Wet. No more light. My flashlight died. The beam didn't fade. It snapped. Gone. I crawled blind through the rubble, heart hammering, scraping my knuckles on rebar and splintered metal. The moment I cleared the seam, my radio flared back to life. "Unit 3! We've got movement. Repeat, evac line in place, collapse risk, pull out." I didn't respond. I just ran. They hauled me up on ropes a minute later. I didn't even remember climbing. I collapsed on the floor above, coughing blood into my mask. They asked about Holt. I said nothing. They found his helmet. But not him. Not then. Not ever. We went back 4 more times over the next 2 days. Every time we marked the pocket where I found his gear, the coordinates would shift on the readout. LiDAR scans showed voids that weren't there the day before. Voices came through other teams' radios, voices of people they knew. Family. Friends. Some started refusing to go below the 2nd floor. I can't blame them. On the last day of the operation, just before we called it for good, someone found a name etched into a crushed beam near the base. It wasn't Holt's. It was Emily. The same name from the collapsed apartment tower 10 miles away, 3 years ago. That case? Also mine. Also a failed rescue. Also, a whisper through the rubble. I don't talk about it anymore. But I still dream of the knocking. Still wake up hearing someone say, "You were late." Because in that darkness, deep beneath the dust and steel and time, they're still waiting.